Good morning, friends of the media, and welcome to the press conference. The Chief Executive will give her opening remarks and take your questions later. Good morning, friends of the media, and good morning, all Hong Kong residents. I would like to report on matter unrelated to the epidemic, and I will take your questions later. Today, I would like to report on the Court of the Final Appeal Chief Justice appointment. I would like to accept the recommendations of the Judicial Appointments Commission and appointment Carrie Lam of the permanent judge as the Chief Justice of the Court of Final Appeal. The Carrie Lam will be the third Chief Justice of the Court of Final Appeal. Upon the consent of the ExCo, according to Cap 88, I will make the appointment that will begin on 11th of January 2021. And last October, and Chief Justice Jeffrey Ma was stepped down on January 11th on 2021 on his statutory retirement age of 65. I had said that I will respect Justice Ma's decision and had requested the judiciary in following the basic law requirements and relevant regulations to begin the appointment procedures for the next Chief Justice. I would like to thank the Commission have completed the exercise and make the recommendations, and the JORC considerations and the deliberations, and you may take reference to the paper submitted by the head of administration to the ExCo. And on appointment of the Andrew Chang's recommendation, I would like to congratulate Justice Chang on his appointment, and I had written a letter of congratulations to him. Justice Chang is a very talented judge and have a superb competency and leadership, and he has commanded respect in the judiciary and in the legal profession. And has served as permanent judge in the Chief Justice for over 7 years and had rich administration experience within judiciary. The Chief Justice appointment is very critical to the judiciary of Hong Kong. The rule of law is a bedrock of our prosperity, and independent judiciary in maintaining the rule of law and ensure the impartiality of the law have played a vital role. And that is one of the openly acknowledged advantage of our legal system. The government has been committed in providing all necessary support to the judiciary to support their effective functioning. The government will continue to provide Justice Chang and other members of the judiciary in providing fully committed support. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the soon retiring Justice Ma in defending the rule of law and enhancing the status of judiciary worldwide. We had committed a lot of effort and a strong determination in his tenure of almost over a decade in enhancing its efficiency and transparency, and has made great strides. In Basic Law, Article 88, the appointment of the Chief Justice will recommended by a commission made up of legal elites and officers before comment for the Chief Executive, and currently is chaired by the Jeffrey Ma, including other members like the Secretary of Justice and other 7 members, 2 of which are judges. One of them was appointed upon consulting the Bar Council, and another one under consulting the Council of the Law Society, and 3 other laymen from non-legal professions. And Basic Law, Section Article 90 have mandated that the appointment of the judges of the Chief Court of Final Appeal have only the point we made up upon getting the consent of the ExCo, and we shall begin such exercise in due course. Any questions? Now for the questions. And this is the third time that the Chief Executive being depressed, so there will be a concise session. Cable news. It was mentioned that the appointment of the Chief Justice must get the consent of the ExCo. However, it has not been functioning normally since last year. And how confident are you in getting the passage? And today midnight we'll have this so-called body closure. And back in January, February, the healthcare staff had asked for a strike, for body closure. Does that mean that they have been vindicated and the government have been too late? And would you retract the statement of the whole intimidation on banning the sale of alcohol in bars? When will be implemented at the earliest? And what is the legislative process? And some bar owners claim that this is a band-aid solution. Well, not banning the sale of alcohol will not prevent people from not gathering there. Would you rather to close them and make compensation in order to reduce the problem of social gathering? 3 questions here. And according to basic law article 90, of the appointment in the Court of Final Appeal, and for the Chief Justice must obtain the consent of the ExCo. That has been established practice, and this has been in many years. Upon the recommendations of GORC, the Chief of Administration will inform the House Committee of ExCo, and the administration had informed the House Committee did decide whether to set up a subcommittee to discuss this appointment proposal. And after the House Committee had convened and support this appointment, had to report back to the House Committee. And with the support of the House Committee, the administration will give notice to ExCo that to move a resolution at the Council where they will be voted on and passed this proposal. That is the long-established practice of getting the consent of ExCo. As for you're asking whether I have the confidence to go through the whole exercise. Well, considering Justice Cheng's high esteem in the legal profession and his rich experience in the judiciary, I'm quite confident that I couldn't see how ExCo would object to his appointment. However, the procedure is a different matter. The House Committee of ExCo, and for the whole 6 months, are not able to elect the chairman. Without a chairman, when the head of administration has submitted this proposal for ExCo consideration, there isn't a House Committee to discuss it and to set up a subcommittee to consider the appointment. That the whole legislative exercise is stuck at that point. That's very much my concern. Thus, I appeal to the House Committee of ExCo can elect the chairman as soon as possible, and so as to deal with a lot more matters, including the appointment of the Chief Justice of the Court of Final Appeal and other legislative proposals, especially on the election and for the chairman, the person who's chairing the committee for the election of the chairman is actually Dennis Kwok, the member representing the legal profession. He, above anyone else, most understands the importance of the course in order to facilitate the early appointment of Justice Cheng. Thus, to make a very strong appeal, our procedure, including Justice Ma and myself, it is a good time before the summer recess, which is before July, to complete the appointment of the Chief Justice in order to facilitate a smooth transition and allow the Chief Justice in waiting to better plan his work locally and abroad.
至於第二個問題，
In relation to your second question, in the past 2 months at various times, there has been some requests made asking for, say, for example, closure of borders. But at different times, it meant different things. In view of the development of the epidemic, we have adopted a number of control measures at border control points to keep down the flow of people. At the early stage with the outbreak on the mainland, we placed the focus on flow of people between Hong Kong and the mainland. The number of border control points has been reduced from 14 to 3, and it remains at 3. So people traveling across the border, whether they are Hong Kong residents or not, after the 8th of February, have to go through a compulsory quarantine for 14 days. These basket of measures relating to border control points have successfully reduced the flow of people crossing the border, and it has kept Hong Kong safe. Between February and March, there were few local cases. For this reason, we gradually resume government services and public services. But then there is a large number of imported cases. The main border control point is the airport, which wasn't mentioned a lot. But now with the change in situation, focus is now on the Hong Kong International Airport. Starting from mid-March, we have adopted different measures to control the number of people coming from to Hong Kong from overseas. Midnight tomorrow, we will have a complete ban on non-Hong Kong residents to enter into Hong Kong via the Hong Kong airport. We keep in view the development of the epidemic, and we have taken reference from scientific data and advice from experts before we made a decision. The third area is about our prohibition on selling of liquor. This is a difficult task. Of course, we hope that every member of the public in Hong Kong will exercise restraint. If they successfully do it, then there is no need to adopt legislative work. But in order to assure Hong Kong people, we are willing to adopt legislative work. But that should focus on matters close to everyone's heart. From the advice from the CHP, and as Dr. Cheung of the CHP said, regarding consumption at restaurants and bars, well, the most concerning situation takes place in bars, and there has been about 10 cases that took place in bars or are relating to entertainment at these places. So we focus our work in this area. Of course, there is one way, which is a complete closure. But when bars are stopped from selling liquor, they can still provide other services, say for example catering. Well, if we have a complete closure, that it means that all 8,000 restaurants and bars will have to close. Well, we are aware of the various views. We're willing to listen. Legislative work will take a few days before we get any result from our in-depth study. The best option at the moment is for everyone to exercise self-restraint, to reduce social contact, and unless it is absolutely necessary, stay at home. If we see that the situation is not getting any better, we will not hesitate to adopt acceptable options that will protect public health. I'd like to say that since we have imposed comprehensive home quarantine at the airport, we have seen a number of cases of people who have flouted this quarantine order. It hurts us to see the situation, so we will step up patrol and enforcement. We will leave no stone unturned to deal with the situation. We feel that a lot of Hong Kong people are willing to take up their civil responsibility, their civic responsibility. Those who are home confinees should also do their duty. The one at the front. I'm from TVB. I'd like to ask more about the liquor prohibition. Well, as the Department of Health said that, well, there are some other cases that are not related to bars, but there were people gathering together. After the prohibition of liquor selling, would you move on to something more stringent? And as you said, that there are a number of people who have flouted the quarantine order. People go to supermarkets, go to a different district to eat wearing the wristband. Would you consider enhancing the penalty, say for example extending the number of days under quarantine or other ways? The third question, will you consider complete closure of borders, including land borders, air as well as sea? As I said yesterday, our legislative work will use a way of empowerment. That means that there will be an empowering regulation to impose further restrictions if necessary. These restrictions can come in different forms. The most extreme one is closing of restaurants. Lesser ones are to control or restrict their operating times or restricting the number of people at each table. Every time we think about what measures are in place here and what measures are overseas, we have to take into account Hong Kong's situation. The second question, as I've said, in relation to those people who blatantly flout the quarantine order by leaving where they're supposed to be, they increase the risk of infection. That is very irresponsible. How do we stop such irresponsible act? Of course, I appeal to people not to do something like that because it will hurt society and they break the law. As I cited an example yesterday, it was the Tuen Mun Law Court. The court refused bail. So you have to consider, is it worth paying that price to be remanded for just going out? Is it worth the price to pay to have a criminal record? So please be tolerant and exercise self-restraint. At the moment, the additional penalty is that if they are caught, they will have to be sent to quarantine centers. That means they can't stay at home during the quarantine. However, this brings another problem because the capacity of our quarantine centers are limited, currently standing at 1,600 places. Every time we hear about these cases, we have to trace close contacts of these confirmed cases. These close contacts actually have a higher risk than people who come to Hong Kong via the airport when they have to undergo compulsory quarantine. The most effective way to protect public health is to save these quarantine center facilities for close contacts of confirmed cases. But if there are a large number of people flouting the quarantine orders, and if they have to be sent to quarantine centers, this will have impose a heavy burden on our work. I don't want to see that happening often. I hear that a lot of people say that, well, why aren't they put in quarantine centers? We don't have the favorable condition to that. And there are difficulties in finding quarantine centers. Were it not been for the strong objection 2 months ago, perhaps we would have a better condition in relation to designated clinics as well as quarantine centers. We have 6,000 to 7,000 people arriving in Hong Kong every day via the airport. Every day we issue 6,000 to 7,000 wristbands. They have to go through 14-day quarantine. That means at any time there are about 9,000 to 100,000 people that are under quarantine. We can't have that many places. We have to allocate limited resources based on risk. The third area is about our contact with other places, the 3 land borders as well as the Hong Kong International Airport. A lot of Hong Kong residents are coming back. If we close the borders, it means that we completely close the borders and refuse people from going in or out. There are Hong Kong residents or overseas students who would like to come back. There is also the constitutional perspective. Under the basic law, Hong Kong people have freedom of movement, so we can't turn them away. And unlike other places, we have permanent residents and non-permanent residents. So people said that, well, if you're foreigners, you are not allowed to come in. But the foreigner may hold a Hong Kong permanent ID card. So we have to think about this from different angles. And let me say this. All the work and measures are decided on based on empirical data. We don't take into account one's nationality, ethnicity, and language before we decide who are allowed to come to Hong Kong. The only distinction is Hong Kong residents and non-Hong Kong residents because of the Hong Kong human rights as well as the protection of freedom of movement. Passengers going through the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, whether they are Hong Kong residents or not, they have to go through the 14-day quarantine. I believe that people going through the other 2 borders will be greatly reduced. Thank you.